Now to Ukraine, where the military says it has inflicted huge losses on Russian forces near Bakhmut, the embattled eastern city that has been seeing fierce fighting for months now. Meanwhile, Kremlin-backed officials in the Zaporizhzhia region are evacuating civilians living in occupied towns. That includes the area around the nuclear power station. Ukrainian workers at the plant are not being allowed to leave, though their family members are being evacuated. CNN's Nick Paton-Walsh is in Zaporizhzhia and joins me now live. What are we hearing about Bakhmut then and the situation there?
Yeah, it is extraordinary, it seems, reversal against Russia here. A significant part of the front line apparently given up by conventional Russian troops who are seen on some footage put out by Ukrainian officials fleeing the area. Now, this was first brought to light, indeed, by Russia itself. Russia's mercenary head, Yevgeny Prigozhin, talking about how he'd lost 500 of his fighters holding and taking this particular area, but it was the conventional Russian military that appeared to have fled. That was then confirmed by Ukrainian military figures as well, who claimed, and you know, it's always hard to put too much stock into casualty numbers in this conflict, but claimed that 200 had been killed and 200 had been injured as Russia gave those positions up. But remember, this is a stark change in the narrative here. A few weeks ago, Russian forces were talking about the possibility they might be able to encircle the remaining Ukrainian holdout forces in the city, cutting off some of the last roads. Then we had this extraordinary public spat. Yevgeny Prigozhin demanding more artillery shells, pointing the finger squarely at the Russian Defense Ministry for not providing adequate resources for him. He threatened to leave today. Yesterday he said he hadn't in fact even received those artillery shells, and now today he's suggesting that the Russian conventional military has abandoned some positions that his men had fought and lost for. So a startling display of public disunity, frankly, from the Russians here. He's consistent in his criticism, vocal, frankly, almost in a way unheard of in Putin's Russia, against the top brass of the Russian military, and Ukraine clearly seeking to capitalise upon this. It isn't clear if this marks the beginning of a broader Russian rout around that city of Bakhmut. Ukrainian officials are saying it's not actually artillery shells that Russia appears to be short of there. They're saying the barrage continues as it always has done, but in fact Wagner are running out of people on the ground. So certainly a testing moment around Bakhmut. It's been the singular objective of Russia, both Wagner and its conventional military, over all the winter. They said they'd take it by yesterday. They just simply haven't managed to achieve this one comparatively simple task, despite throwing thousands of men at a city which is strategically not that significant for Russia's broader goals here. So remarkable, frankly, that we're hearing this disunity and this reverse from Russia here and its fortunes on the front line, Max.
OK, Nick Paton-Walsh in Zaporizhzhia, thank you. Now, it seems for some Ukrainians the war has become almost background noise to their daily lives. And whilst every day brings the very real risk of being killed, after 14 months of conflict, it seems many are almost numb to it all. CNN's Nick Robertson reports now from eastern Ukraine.
A few miles from Ukraine's eastern front, life is, well, sort of normal, although it's not. Outside of war, who needs this much camo kit?
Bam, bam.
Thank you very much, thank you. Look, she gave me a nice woolly hat to keep me warm.
People are friendly, not frozen in fear, even though they feel it. We don't know what's happening 30 minutes from now, she says, let alone an hour. No worries shown in the town park either. Workers trim the grass as artillery shells tear up not so distant fields. Showing fear, it seems, is an abandoned indulgence. Air raid warnings, passé now. The sirens have become such a background part of people's lives here living through the war. They don't even respond, take notice, flinch even. War is just ever present, pervaded through people's lives. Outside of town, even closer to the front, this elderly couple nonchalantly tell us their home was shelled last month. He even jokes. It's boring when there's no shooting. Both, though, hopeful Ukraine's coming counter-offensive will end their suffering. We believe Ukraine will go in there and beat them well, his wife says. Further on, pensioner Zinovy is more worried about his weeds than the war. We don't understand anything about the counter-offensive, he says. We just hope for our Ukraine, for our defence. Where and when the counter-offensive may begin is one of the war's best-kept secrets so far. The mystery is exactly what Ukraine wants. Keep Russia guessing, stretch their supply lines, sap troop morale. Ukraine's victory rides on surprise. Driving around near the front lines here, you can hear some shelling in the distance and you can see plenty of soldiers around. But what you don't get a sense of is any big build-up for a counter-offensive. Farmers here are counting on their troops' success, sowing crops in fields they want to harvest in fall. Mikola hopes the counter-offensive will secure his land, but says he knows some of the soldiers around here, knows how hard the fight will be, knows it will be a bloody battle. Nick Robertson, CNN, Eastern Ukraine.
Claire, this lack of grain leaving the ports in Ukraine, effectively that grain deal appears to be dead right now.
It's on the brink. It expires in 8 days' time on May 18th. Russia only extended it in March for 60 days, even though when it was agreed back in July last year, the agreement was that every time it was extended, it would be for 120 days. They're now saying the UN has said that on Sunday and Monday there were no inspections of ships. They've now restarted inspections on outbound ships, so leaving Ukrainian ports for the global markets through those sort of maritime corridors that were agreed. But, you know, Russia is making this hard. There were expert-level talks last week that did not end well. They're now moving to senior-level talks. They're expected to start today in Istanbul with deputy foreign ministers from the UN, from Ukraine, from Russia and Turkey, and UN representatives as well, to try to revive this deal. I think the problem for Russia is that they're saying that a separate agreement that was agreed last July, which was supposed to help smooth the path for their food and fertilizer exports to global markets, is not being met. They're saying sanctions are getting in the way. Clearly, they're looking to have some of those sanctions lifted. But I think, you know, this is also Russia at a time when it's clearly on the back foot, on the battlefield, struggling to defend as well as attack. It's trying to show Ukraine and the world that this is one area where it still has leverage.
Can I just ask a question about Zaporizhzhia? A huge amount of concern about the nuclear plant there because people are being evacuated from the area.
Yeah, so they're evacuating the families of the staff of the nuclear plant from Enerhodar, which is the town that's adjacent to the plant. It's sort of like a feeder town into that plant. But we're now hearing this morning that they're not allowing the actual Ukrainian staff to leave. Now, we know that a number of Ukrainian staff have remained in the plant throughout this conflict. The plant has been occupied by Russia really since the first weeks of the war. They need them there to keep running it. Russia does not have people they can just bring in just like that to keep running this plant. So that's, I think, what's going on here. But it is extremely nerve-wracking. We know that this plant is vulnerable. We know there's weapons on the site, certainly according to the Ukrainians. But I think the most important thing here is what we don't know. We just don't have a lot of visibility about what Russia has been doing there, how they've been running it, the amount of military equipment there. And that's certainly what's been worrying the Ukrainian side.
OK, Claire, thank you very much indeed. Also, Nick.